Have you ever looked at your own life and realized, the biggest thing holding you back is not other people, not bad luck, not even failure? It's your patterns. The same reactions. The same excuses. The same habits. The same emotional traps. And the scary part is this. Most people repeat these patterns for their entire lives without ever noticing them. But the Stoics believed something different. They believed a person could completely transform their life the moment they learned to control themselves instead of being controlled by their impulses. So if you're tired of feeling stuck, tired of starting over, tired of being controlled by emotions, distractions, fear, laziness, anger, or overthinking, then stay with me until the end of this video. Because today, we are going to break bad patterns and take back control of our minds like a true Stoic. And if you believe in becoming mentally stronger every single day, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, and share this video with someone who needs it. Now listen carefully. Every bad pattern begins with something small. A small excuse. A small delay. A small emotional reaction. And over time, that small thing becomes your identity. There was a young man who always told himself, "I'll start tomorrow." Tomorrow he would work on his dreams. Tomorrow he would wake up early. Tomorrow he would stop wasting time. But tomorrow kept moving. Days became months. Months became years. And eventually he realized something painful. He had not lost because he lacked talent. He lost because he repeated the same pattern every day. The Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius once reminded himself that our life is shaped by our thoughts and actions repeated daily. That means your future is not created by one big decision. It is created by your repeated habits. Your patterns are building your future right now. The question is, are they building freedom or destruction? One of the most dangerous bad patterns is emotional reaction. Someone insults you, and instantly you react. Someone disappoints you, and your peace disappears. Something goes wrong, and suddenly your entire day is ruined. The Stoics understood something powerful. You cannot control everything that happens to you. But you can control your response. And that changes everything. Imagine a man walking through a crowded market. Someone accidentally bumps into him and insults him loudly. Immediately, everyone waits for his reaction. Most people would explode with anger. But this man simply smiles and continues walking. His friend later asks him, "How did you stay calm?" And the man replies, "Why should I hand my peace to a stranger?" That is power. Real strength is not shouting louder. Real strength is remaining calm when chaos tries to enter your mind. Every time you react emotionally without thinking, you strengthen the pattern of weakness. But every time you pause, breathe, and choose your response carefully, you strengthen discipline. And discipline is freedom. Another destructive pattern is seeking comfort all the time. Modern life teaches people to avoid discomfort. People want easy success. Easy money. Easy relationships. Easy motivation. But Stoicism teaches the opposite. Growth comes from discomfort. A blacksmith cannot create a sword without fire. And life cannot create strength without struggle. There was a boy who hated difficult situations. Anytime life became uncomfortable, he quit. If work became stressful, he gave up. If learning became hard, he stopped. If people criticized him, he ran away. Years later, he watched others succeed while he remained stuck. Not because they were smarter, but because they learned how to endure discomfort. The Stoics trained themselves to face difficulty on purpose. Sometimes they slept on the floor. Sometimes they fasted. Sometimes they practiced silence. Not because suffering was enjoyable, but because they wanted control over their desires. A man who cannot handle discomfort becomes a slave to comfort. And comfort can quietly destroy ambition. If you truly want to break bad patterns, you must stop running from difficult things. Wake up early even when you don't feel like it. Train your body even when you're tired. Stay disciplined even when motivation disappears. Because motivation is temporary. Discipline is what changes lives. Another pattern destroying many people today is constant distraction. People can no longer sit quietly with their own thoughts. The moment silence appears, they grab their phones. The moment boredom appears, they search for entertainment. Their minds are constantly crowded. And because of that, they never truly understand themselves. One Stoic teacher told his student, if you cannot sit alone quietly, then your mind controls you. Think about that deeply. Many people are not afraid of failure. They are afraid of silence. Because silence reveals the truth. It reveals your fears. Your weaknesses. Your wasted time. Your lack of direction. But silence also reveals clarity. There was a businessman who constantly felt anxious. He distracted himself every hour of the day. Music. Social media. Noise. Parties. Endless conversations. One day, he traveled alone to a quiet village. For the first time in years, there was no noise. At first, he felt uncomfortable. But after several days, something changed. He began thinking clearly again. He realized most of his stress came from mental overload. And that's what happens when you slow down. You begin hearing your real thoughts again. Stoicism teaches us to protect the mind from unnecessary noise. Not everything deserves your attention. Not every argument deserves your energy. Not every trend deserves your focus. Not every opinion deserves your reaction. Protect your mind like it is your greatest treasure. Because it is. Another terrible pattern is blaming others for everything. Blaming parents. Blaming society. Blaming friends. Blaming the economy. Blaming the past. Now yes, life can be unfair. People can hurt you. Circumstances can slow you down. But Stoicism teaches personal responsibility. The moment you take responsibility for your life, you regain power. There were two brothers raised in the same difficult neighborhood. One became disciplined and successful. The other became bitter and destructive. When people asked the successful brother how he escaped that environment, he said, "I refuse to let my past decide my future." When they asked the other brother why he failed, he said, "With the childhood I had, what did you expect? Same pain. Different mindset. One used pain as fuel. The other used pain as an excuse." Your past may explain your suffering. But it should not become your prison. You must stop waiting for someone to rescue you. Take responsibility for your actions. Your habits. Your mindset. Your future. That is the Stoic way. Another bad pattern is overthinking. Many people destroy opportunities inside their own minds before they even begin. What if I fail? What if people judge me? What if I'm not good enough? So instead of taking action, they remain frozen. Overthinking creates paralysis. The Stoics believed action destroys fear. There was a young woman who dreamed of starting her own business. For years she planned everything perfectly. But she never started. She spent more time thinking than acting. Meanwhile, another woman with less knowledge started immediately. She made mistakes. She failed sometimes. She learned slowly. But eventually she succeeded. Why? Because action teaches what thinking alone never can. Perfection is not required to begin. Courage is. Most fears lose their power the moment you face them directly. The Stoics often reminded themselves that death is unavoidable. Not to become depressed. But to stop wasting time. Because when you remember life is short, you stop overthinking every little thing. You stop waiting for perfect conditions. You realize time is more valuable than comfort. Another pattern that destroys peace is attachment to other people's opinions. This is one of the biggest traps in modern life. People are afraid to be themselves. Afraid to speak honestly. Afraid to chase their dreams. Afraid to look different. Why? Because they fear judgment. But listen carefully. No matter what you do, people will always have opinions. If you succeed, some people will envy you. If you fail, some people will mock you. If you stay quiet, people judge you. If you speak loudly, people judge you. So why surrender your life to opinions you cannot control? A philosopher once walked through town wearing simple clothing while wealthy people laughed at him. But he remained calm. Why? Because he valued character more than approval. The Stoics believed your worth comes from virtue, not public opinion. And once you truly understand that, you become free. Free from fake validation. Free from pretending. Free from the exhausting need to impress everyone. Another destructive pattern is negative self-talk. Some people become their own worst enemy. Every day they tell themselves, I'm weak. I'm not smart enough. I'll never change. I always fail. And eventually the mind begins to believe it. Your thoughts shape your behavior. Imagine planting poison into soil every single day and expecting healthy fruit. Impossible. A man once carried a small notebook everywhere he went. Every time he caught himself thinking negatively, he replaced the thought with a stronger one. Instead of saying, I can't handle this, he wrote, I will grow through this. Instead of, my life is terrible, he wrote, this pain is teaching me strength. Over time, his mindset transformed. Not because life became easier, but because his inner dialogue changed. Stoicism teaches us to guard the mind carefully. Because the battle inside your mind determines the quality of your life. Another bad pattern is living without purpose. When people lack purpose, they become easily distracted. They waste years chasing temporary pleasure. Entertainment replaces growth. Comfort replaces discipline. Excuses replace action. A person without purpose drifts through life like a ship without direction. There was an old fisherman who woke up before sunrise every morning. One day a young man asked him, how do you stay so disciplined every day? The old man smiled and pointed to the ocean. When you know where you are going, waking up early becomes easier. That is true. Purpose creates energy. When your life has meaning, discipline becomes easier. The Stoics believed every person should live according to higher values. Wisdom. Courage. Self-control. Justice. Not temporary pleasure. Because pleasure fades quickly. But character lasts forever. Another dangerous pattern is comparing yourself to others. Social media has made this problem worse than ever. People compare their entire lives to someone else's highlight reel. And because of that, they constantly feel behind. But comparison destroys peace. There was a runner who constantly looked sideways during a race to see what others were doing. Because of that, he lost focus and slowed down. Meanwhile, another runner focused only on his own lane. And he won. Your life improves the moment you stop obsessing over other people's progress. Focus on your own growth. Your own discipline. Your own peace. Your own journey. Stoicism teaches that envy is useless because another person's success does not steal your potential. You still have your own path. Walk it with focus. Another bad pattern is quitting too early. Most people give up before results appear. They want immediate rewards. But life does not work that way. Nature itself teaches patience. A tree does not grow overnight. A warrior does not become strong in 1 week. A disciplined mind takes time to build. There was a farmer who planted seeds during a difficult season. Weeks passed and nothing appeared. Many people mocked him. But he kept watering the ground faithfully. Eventually the harvest came. The people who mocked him only saw the final result. They did not see the patience behind it. Success often looks invisible in the beginning. Keep showing up. Keep improving. Keep building. Even when results are slow. Because consistency breaks bad patterns. Not intensity. Small disciplined actions repeated daily can completely transform a life. And finally, one of the greatest Stoic lessons is this. You become what you repeatedly practice. If you practice anger, you become angry. If you practice excuses, you become weak. If you practice discipline, you become powerful. If you practice calmness, you become unshakable. Your habits are training your identity every single day. So ask yourself honestly. What are you training yourself to become? A victim? Or a leader? A slave to emotion? Or a master of self? Because every day you are becoming someone. The Stoics believed the strongest person is not the richest, not the loudest, not the most famous. But the one who controls themselves. The one who remains calm under pressure. The one who keeps discipline during hard times. The one who stays focused while others become distracted. That is true power. And the beautiful thing is, anyone can begin today. Not tomorrow. Not next year. Today. One small disciplined decision can begin changing your entire life. Wake up earlier. Control your reactions. Put down distractions. Face discomfort willingly. Speak to yourself with strength. Take responsibility for your future. Little by little, you break the old patterns. Little by little, you become stronger. And one day you wake up realizing you are no longer controlled by the habits that once destroyed your peace. You have become mentally free. And before you leave this video, understand this truth carefully. Breaking bad patterns is not a one-time battle. It is a daily war. Some mornings you will feel strong. Some mornings you will feel tired. Some days discipline will feel natural. Other days your old habits will pull at you like chains. That is normal. Even the Stoics struggled with themselves. Seneca once wrote that we suffer more in imagination than in reality. Think about how many times your own mind has exaggerated fear. Fear of failure. Fear of rejection. Fear of starting over. But when you finally faced the situation, it was never as terrifying as your mind imagined. That is why courage matters so much. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is moving forward despite fear. There was a soldier who trained for years before battle. Every day he repeated the same difficult exercises. At times he became frustrated. He wondered if the training was even necessary. But when war finally arrived, his preparation saved his life. The same is true in your own life. The small disciplines you practice today are preparing you for future storms. Every time you control your anger, you are training emotional strength. Every time you resist distraction, you are training focus. Every time you continue working while others quit, you are training resilience. Nothing is wasted. One of the biggest mistakes people make is expecting instant transformation. They want to completely change overnight. But real transformation happens quietly. Slowly. Almost invisibly. Imagine water dripping onto a stone. One drop changes nothing. But over time, the stone begins to change shape. Consistency has power. There was a man who decided to improve his life by just 1% every day. Only 1%. He started waking up slightly earlier. Reading a few pages daily. Exercising for a short time. Controlling small emotional reactions. At first, the changes seemed meaningless. But after 1 year, his life looked completely different. That is how powerful small repeated actions become. Never underestimate small discipline. A tiny habit repeated daily becomes destiny. Another pattern you must destroy is seeking motivation before action. This trap destroys millions of dreams. People say, "I'll start when I feel motivated." But motivation is unreliable. Some days it appears. Some days it disappears completely. The Stoics did not wait for feelings. They acted based on principles. A writer writes even when uninspired. A warrior trains even when tired. A disciplined person moves forward even when emotions resist. Because action creates momentum. There was a musician who practiced every single morning before sunrise. One day a friend asked him, "How do you stay motivated for so many years?" The musician laughed softly. "I'm not always motivated," he said. "But I am committed." That is the difference. Motivation is emotional. Commitment is intentional. And commitment changes lives. Another bad pattern many people carry is constantly escaping reality. Some escape through endless entertainment. Some through unhealthy relationships. Some through addictions. Some through constant busyness. Why? Because facing themselves feels uncomfortable. But avoidance never heals anything. If a wound is ignored, it becomes worse. A man once noticed cracks appearing in the walls of his house. Instead of fixing them, he covered them with paint. For a while, everything looked fine. But beneath the surface, the damage continued growing. Eventually the entire structure became unstable. That is exactly what happens when people ignore their inner problems. Pain hidden is pain multiplied. Stoicism teaches honesty with oneself. You must face your weaknesses directly. Not with shame. But with courage. Ask yourself difficult questions. Why do I keep repeating this behavior? Why do I sabotage myself? What fear controls me? What habits are destroying my peace? Self-awareness is the beginning of transformation. A person who refuses to examine themselves remains trapped forever. Another dangerous pattern is allowing emotions to control decisions. One moment of anger can destroy years of trust. One impulsive decision can ruin opportunities. The Stoics believed emotions should be understood, not obeyed blindly. Imagine a captain steering a ship during a violent storm. If he panics emotionally, the ship crashes. But if he remains calm and thinks clearly, the ship survives. Your mind works the same way. Life will bring storms. People will disappoint you. Plans will fail. Unexpected problems will appear. But emotional control determines whether you sink or survive. There was a businessman who lost a huge amount of money during a crisis. Many around him panicked. Some gave up completely. But he remained calm. He told himself, "If I lose my peace along with my money, then I lose twice." So instead of collapsing emotionally, he focused on solutions. Years later, he rebuilt everything. Calmness gave him clarity. And clarity saved his future. Never underestimate the power of a calm mind. A calm mind sees opportunities that panic cannot see. Another pattern destroying people is the addiction to validation. Many people only feel valuable when others approve of them. They post for attention. Speak for applause. Live for acceptance. But this creates emotional slavery. Because when your happiness depends on other people's opinions, your peace becomes fragile. The Stoics believed inner approval matters more than public approval. There was an artist who created beautiful paintings for years. At first, people ignored his work. Some even criticized him harshly. But he continued painting anyway. Why? Because his purpose was greater than applause. Eventually people recognized his talent. But by then, he no longer depended on praise to continue. That is freedom. When you stop needing constant validation, you become unstoppable. You begin living authentically. You stop performing for the crowd. And your confidence becomes stronger because it comes from within. Another terrible pattern is wasting energy on things outside your control. This is one of the core teachings of Stoicism. You cannot control the weather. You cannot control other people. You cannot control the past. You cannot control every outcome. But many people waste their entire lives stressing about uncontrollable things. And because of that, they lose energy for the things they actually can change. There was a man who spent years complaining about unfair situations. Every conversation became negativity. Every problem became proof that life hated him. Meanwhile, another man in the same situation focused only on what he could control. His attitude. His discipline. His actions. His mindset. Years later, their lives looked completely different. One became bitter. The other became stronger. The difference was focus. Stoicism teaches this powerful question. What is within my control right now? That single question can calm the mind immediately. Because it redirects your energy toward action instead of helplessness. Another pattern keeping people weak is surrounding themselves with negativity. Energy matters. The people around you influence your mindset more than you realize. If you constantly stay around lazy people, excuses begin to sound normal. If you constantly stay around angry people, negativity becomes contagious. If you constantly stay around distracted people, discipline becomes difficult. There was a young man who wanted to improve his life, but all his friends mocked ambition. Whenever he talked about goals, they laughed. Whenever he tried to improve, they tempted him back into bad habits. Eventually he realized something painful. You cannot soar like an eagle while living among people committed to staying on the ground. So he changed his environment. Slowly his mindset changed too. Protect your mind carefully. Not everyone deserves access to your energy. Stoicism teaches wisdom in choosing companions. Because your environment shapes your habits. Another harmful pattern is constantly living in the past. Some people replay old mistakes every day. Old embarrassment. Old heartbreak. Old failures. They become prisoners of memory. But the past cannot be changed. A Stoic understands this deeply. Imagine carrying heavy stones everywhere you go. Eventually the weight crushes you. That is what unresolved regret does to the mind. There was an old teacher who carried a glass of water during class. He asked his students, "How heavy is this glass?" The students gave different answers. The teacher smiled and said, "The weight depends on how long I hold it." Then he continued, "If I hold it for a minute, it's manageable. An hour becomes painful. A whole day becomes unbearable." The same is true for regret. Learn from the past. But do not carry it forever. The purpose of mistakes is wisdom. Not self-destruction. Forgive yourself. Learn. Move forward. That is strength. Another bad pattern is fearing loneliness. Many people stay in toxic relationships, fake friendships, or destructive environments because they fear being alone. But solitude can be powerful. The Stoics valued time alone because solitude strengthens self-awareness. A man once spent years constantly surrounded by noise and people. But he never truly understood himself. One day he began taking long walks alone every morning. No phone. No distractions. Just silence. At first it felt uncomfortable. Then something changed. His thoughts became clearer. His emotions became calmer. His decisions became wiser. Solitude gave him perspective. Never confuse loneliness with peace. Sometimes being alone heals you more than being surrounded by the wrong people. And finally, understand this. Breaking bad patterns is not about becoming perfect. Perfection does not exist. Even disciplined people struggle sometimes. Even strong people feel weak occasionally. The goal is not perfection. The goal is progress. To become wiser than yesterday. Stronger than yesterday. More disciplined than yesterday. That is enough. Every day you resist a bad habit, you win. Every day you choose discipline over excuses, you win. Every day you control your emotions instead of letting them control you, you win. And eventually those small victories build an entirely new identity. One day people will look at you and say, "You've changed." And they'll be right. Because you stopped surrendering to weakness. You stopped repeating destructive patterns. You stopped waiting for life to save you. And instead, you saved yourself. If this message spoke to you, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment about the habit you are breaking, and share this video with someone who needs strength today. Remember this always. Your future is hidden inside your daily habits. Change the habits. And you change your life.